I'm Ava Brooks, your youngest AIWF Women's World Champion, and this is Fans View Podcast.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Fans View Podcast. On today's episode, I have a young up-and-comer from the Pittsburgh area that is really out there just grinding, making towns, trying to make a name for herself. I want to welcome to the Fans View Podcast, Ava Brooks. Ava,
Hello.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I can't complain. Like I told you before, nobody wants to hear it if I did, so... I know you're a busy lady, and I say this all the time. I'm terrible at small talk, so I'm just going to jump right into it with you.
Okay.
When did you first really fall in love with professional wrestling? Can you remember that moment?
Yeah, so I didn't grow up with, wrestling was on in my house, but I never was like, oh, I'm going to sit down and watch WWE. That's more my brother. So I didn't really have a love for wrestling until I discovered indie wrestling first at the age of 14.
Okay.
And my mom takes ringside photos, so we'd go to shows that she'd be taking pictures at. I'd help set up the ring, do all that stuff. I couldn't start training until I was 16. But the match that made me fall in love with it, I want to say, I say this every time, I don't know exactly who she was facing, because it was more so a particular wrestler than it was the match itself. But it was Katie Arquette at IWC, and I was just, captivated by the way she moved, the way she hit her moves in the ring, how she made me feel. And, at that moment, I wanted to make fans feel the same thing that I did whenever I watched her move in the ring. So
I love that answer. I love that.
So it started there, and then couldn't train until I was 16. Can't wrestle in Pennsylvania until you're 18.
Right.
So I trained for 2 years, and then I just debuted last summer on my 18th birthday.
Wow, you are as young as they come in the business then, huh?
Yeah.
So who are some of your favorites? I know you mentioned Katie Arquette. Who are some of your favorites, in the professional wrestling business, whether it be on the independents, or in eventually WWE? And who really, would you attribute Katie to inspiring you to want to be a professional wrestler?
Yeah, for sure. I think Katie is the whole reason that I found my love for professional wrestling. So, I didn't really realize that women's wrestling, I knew it existed, but I also didn't know it existed, because I know for such a long time it was all about sex appeal and stuff like that, and they didn't really let the women wrestle. So at that point, my mom tried to keep me away from it, because I always wanted to do amateur wrestling, which I did for about 6 months, and then I ended up breaking my hand, so I couldn't get back into it. It just felt really weird. But I definitely say Katie is the main inspiration, and then from her I found out about Britt Baker, who also wrestled at IWC. I actually got to meet Britt, seen her a few times at live events for AEW. Who else? I definitely say a lot of the way that I move in the ring is inspired by Liv Morgan, because we have similar builds, so I get a lot of inspiration from her. And then I'd say just seeing Raylan on the indies, even seeing her at WoW, Katie, Danny Moe, all of these core people that I really started seeing whenever we started going to these shows. Those were the main 3, and Queen Aminata.
Yeah.
They really shaped my view on women's wrestling and what it should be.
Yeah, I mean, those are some good names to be drawn towards. I love that you were throwing out a lot of Northeast names up there. As a Jersey kid at heart, That was music to my ears. And obviously, Britt Baker, you being in Pennsylvania, her kind of being the face of wrestling out of Pennsylvania, these days, that seems like a natural fit. When did wrestling become something that you enjoyed as a fan from that perspective to becoming something like, this is what I want to do, with my life? This isn't just a hobby. I want to do this professionally.
So before I had seen Katie at IWC, because that show is when I was like, I want to do this. And I asked my mom, and we asked around on like where I could go. Because I don't think I brought it up to my mom immediately, but I was just like, it was always in the back of my head. So by the time I was like 15, is when I brought it up to my mom, and she's like, we'll look into it. But no one would touch me until I was 16. So I was just like, okay. But we started, like, I was first introduced to indie matches when we started going to Imagine, and I think that was 2019 that they started, somewhere around there.
Okay.
But, or I guess that was probably a little bit, I don't even know how old I would have been in 2019. I'm getting old. Anyway, it started somewhere, but it wasn't until that Katie match that I was like, this is what I want to do.
I got you. Spoken like a true 18-year-old. You don't know what old is yet, my friend. You'll get there quick. You'll get there sooner rather than later in this business, though.
I've been an athlete my whole life. Like, I woke up this morning because both my knees were in excruciating pain. Put icy hot on them. Took some ibuprofen. I was just like, sometimes I ask myself why I do it to myself, and then I'm just like, because this is what you love. Like, like, I just came back from injury. I was gone for a month and a half, and that month and a half killed me. Like, my doctor cleared me, and I was good, but I had full intentions on, like, once March hit, even if I was cleared or not, I was gonna end up wrestling. I was like, I'll just wrap it up. I can't do this.
Yeah, you're gonna do okay in this business, I do believe. So I this wasn't on my sheet, but what was Mom's reaction when she found out you were serious about this? Like, was she on board? Was she like, maybe let's don't? What was her thought on it?
This is like, I'll answer in like a family aspect because all of my family is involved. My brother wants to be a wrestler when he gets that age. He'll be 14 this year. My mom does the ringside pictures. My dad refs occasionally, and we all travel together. So I have a very supportive background, which I'm so thankful for because not a lot of wrestlers have that. And at first I definitely think she was kind of just like, I don't know. Like, I don't think she thought that this is what her daughter would want to do. I don't understand why, because it went from like, I was doing all like the girly sports. So I was doing basketball, volleyball, twirling, all of that. And then I quit all of it whenever I switched to online learning during COVID. And I started going to a gym where I was taking boxing, kickboxing classes, MMA classes. That's when I started wrestling. And I was like, I don't really know, like, but now I can be girly.
How'd you miss it, Mom?
So it's just like, but yeah, I think she definitely was probably worried at first, but at this point, I've been doing all this since I was 16 years old. And this year will be 3 years since I started training, so there's no turning back now.
I like it. I love that. So you talked about how you couldn't train till you were 16, and then you were, balls to the wall. Where'd you end up training?
So for the first, up until 3 months till my debut, I trained at the facility in Johnstown. Mm-hmm. And Nomad was one of my trainers. He was always trying to figure out different things for me to do. Like, a lot of the moves that I do, he taught me, and then whenever I ended up switching school as perfected. But I ended up getting hurt 3 months before my debut, and I was like, fuck. So I'd go to all of these shows once I got cleared. I'd still do my roles and stuff when I was injured, but once I got cleared, I was going and I was helping set up all these rings, and as soon as that ring was up, I was in there training with somebody, no matter who it was, because I was just like, I just chose not to go back to that school. Right. So I debuted with Katie Arquette, which was a full circle moment for me and still one of my favorite moments to this day. But that match was a physical test for me to see where I was with my training. And from that, we decided that I needed to find a different school. So then I started training at Rise in Uniontown with Brandon Kay, and now Glenn Spector is one of our head trainers as well.
Right. So your first match was against Katie? Nice. Nice. So obviously not to dump on them, but did you just feel like the first school just wasn't, you weren't getting what you needed there? Was that kind of the motivation
I
for the
feel
move?
like it kind of got to a point where they taught me everything that they could to their
Right.
to the best of their ability. I just needed something more. So
Right.
I had to make
Yeah,
that
that,
switch.
that makes sense. That makes sense. Um
And I'm still friends
so
with all of them to
what
that day. So if they're listening to this, I'm not shitting on you, I promise.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to make clear. Like I'm not trying to shit on anybody or anything like that cuz sometimes, you're just your needs can't be met, at a certain place. It's just time to
Yeah.
move on.
And
That's
I
all.
was the only girl trainee that we had too. It was all guys. They were all over 6 foot. So it was just like, I'm 5'3". I can't do this, guys.
Yeah, you're just in the land of the giants over there. Um, what unique challenges do you think you face? Obviously, and I don't mean to be condescending, but you're a baby in the business. Obviously, you're 18 years old. What unique challenges do you think you face that maybe you wouldn't have faced had you broken into the business when you were 24? That kind of thing.
I feel like I get underestimated a lot. And this actually has come up fairly recently after I won the belt. I get looked at very weirdly because people don't think that I deserve the opportunities that I have, or they think that I'm coming in with this, like, trying to just come into these promotions and replace people that they have. Um,
Yeah.
and they don't think that I've been in long enough, which I mean, I've only been in, it'll be 9 months tomorrow.
Right.
So in that aspect, I kind of agree with them, but it's also like I've been paying my dues since I was 14, setting up rings. So I did 4 years of setting up rings, tearing down when other people were leaving, um, before I even got to debut. Um, so I feel like that's definitely been probably the hardest. But like, I was talking to my boyfriend about this the other day, and I was just like, I need to realize that I'm the only person that knows the hard work that I've put in to get to where I am, and that I do deserve the opportunities that I'm getting, and that I'm good at what I do. Because everyone's like, well, do you think you're great? And I'm like, I don't think I'm great, but I think that I'm good for where I'm supposed to be. Like, again, I'm
Yeah.
only 9 months in, right? So I'm
Yeah.
still growing. I'm still learning, and I think I'll be learning. You never stop learning in wrestling. Like, that's not a
Right.
thing. Um, but yeah, definitely winning a belt so early has definitely got me a lot of weird looks, which some of them are valid for sure.
Yeah.
Um, but it's just like you don't know what I did to get here.
Absolutely.
It's
Not to mention, you're not the booker. And on top of that, everybody forgets when they were greener than goose shit. Everybody has to deal with it, though. That's just the professional wrestling business in a nutshell, right there. And I'm glad you mentioned your boyfriend because that actually comes into play with my next question: is how hard is it, for you specifically to balance that, like have a boyfriend, have a relationship, have a family life, have a hobby, maybe have a training regimen, work these shows on the weekend? Like, how difficult is it to balance all those things?
yeah. So I feel like my case is probably a little different than um most people's. I When I talk about my boyfriend or bring him up, occasionally I simply say my boyfriend. I've never once said his name in a podcast, and that's because he's a wrestler too. Um,
Okay.
One of the big things that I am such a stickler on is I want to be able to go to these places. And it's not that it will happen, but I've seen it happen, so I kind of just like stay away from it. And we've both talked about this. We don't want it to end up being, oh, she only got here because he's here, or he only got there because she's there. So unless you like know us and like you pay really, really close attention, you're not gonna know. I mean, if you're on a show with the both of us, you're gonna know. But
Right.
yeah, it's definitely challenging because we both wrestle on the weekends. We're both in college. Life on top of all of that. So, I mean, we find the time somehow. We find the time. And we still find the time for our other friends and our families and stuff like that. And everything's going well. I don't really know how I do it. I think part of it might be because like having the whole multi-athlete like schedule before, I'm so used to having X, Y, and Z that I have to do. So I'm usually like drained when it comes to end of the month, but just gotta figure it out.
Hey, I hear that. I respect it. That's also, you're able to do that because 18. That's why you can do it still.
Yeah.
we're gonna revisit this in 10, 12 years, and we're gonna see how you feel then. um, no, but obviously, like I said, that has to be. Would you say that's one of the most difficult parts of being an independent wrestler is finding that home/wrestling balance?
Yeah, for sure. Because especially right now, like I'm gone every weekend.
Yeah.
So, and then my training days are Mondays and Wednesdays, but because of school, I've only been making it on Wednesdays. I'm trying to get back on Mondays, but I also only go in person to my college on Mondays and Wednesdays. So those days are so long. Um,
Yeah.
and then I have my homework and everything like that. So that's my Tuesdays and Thursdays. And you got to find time for the gym. And then it's the weekend. And usually people are like, "Yay, it's the weekend!" And I'm still like, "Yay!" But it's like I'm getting thrown around a ring. So
I'm gonna be honest. Hearing your schedule makes me want to go take a nap. So, um, just because I'm curious, how far? Obviously, you've only been in the business for 9 months. How far out are you traveling? Like, are you trying to stay relatively close, like in the state, or are you all over the place?
so let's see. Where have I wrestled? I've wrestled in Pennsylvania, obviously. I wrestled in New York, West Virginia. I won the belt in North Carolina. We're trying to get my passport finished, so I can go up to Canada, and we have stuff we're working on lining up in the UK. So we're really like pushing all of this. And with it being the world belt, I can go anywhere. So we're just trying to get defenses in. There's a promoter that's talking to my guy from Arkansas, which is like a 14 and a half hour drive from my house
Mm-hmm.
one way. I think
Wow.
I think that's it. So the
So
furthest I've
nothing
gone
is
right
off
now is North
limits.
Carolina.
That is commendable. You are a road warrior. I really respect that. That's tough. It really is. I mean, it's tough mentally. It's tough on the body. It's boring.
Well, and the
um,
luckily with my parents being as supportive as they are, they go with me everywhere. So like I don't have to worry about driving, and if I'm tired, I can just pass out in the back seat.
is awesome.
Yeah, it definitely
that
helps
yeah
a lot.
that might be your most useful tool right there. So who are some of your favorites? Obviously, we talked about Katie. We don't have to beat her to death, but who are some of your favorite people that you've been in the ring with so far?
Okay, so I haven't had that many matches, so there's a good bit of people. I don't think there's anyone that I've been like, mm,
Don't care for that.
mm. But probably my top people. I had my first triple threat with Zoe Sky and Zandra Lee. I love those two. And then I was in a triple threat match with Jody Threat. Loved her. She was super nice. I did a steel cage triple threat match with Masha Slamovich. That was super fun. I was so nervous for that match. And then I faced JC Storm. She was super nice too. Trying to think of who else I've been in the ring with. I think that's it.
That's a
That I'm
nice
gonna
list.
say. Yeah, yeah.
Where would you say? Because typically I like to ask people like where's their favorite place to perform. But since you don't have that many different places under your belt, I want to ask you it this way. Where would you say has been the most challenging, like from a performer standpoint, to perform?
Probably. So whenever I faced Jody Threat, we had Kalina Keene in the match with us. And it was my debut at Big League Pro up in Erie. And I want to say that was probably the biggest crowd that I had ever wrestled in front of. So I think that definitely gave me some like performer anxiety for sure. But Jody helped me through it. And then, yeah, it was that day I was so nervous. I was tape studying before she got there. And I was like, she got there and I was like, it's okay. I know your whole moveset. It's fine. And so, yeah, I was so nervous.
Is there a place in particular that comes to mind when you're like, man, this crowd just didn't want to get with it and you eventually won them over?
Okay. Whenever I went down and faced Clara, it was the second night of their anniversary show, and it was a little colder than it was the night before. So there wasn't as many people as night one. There's still a decent amount of people. But it was cold. We're in this, like, not barn, it's like a pavilion type thing. Barn, I don't know how to describe it, but
you can call it a barn. Welcome to North Carolina.
So everybody's cold. I actually ended up getting sick from that, but the crowd was kind of quiet at first. Claire hadn't been there for a while, but last time she was there, she was heel. She comes out and they're like cheering her. They're like, "Yay!" I was like, oh, they're gonna fucking hate this. So, because as the match slowly progresses, the more I turn heel. So then at the end was probably when we finally got them, because I remember there was like 3 girls sitting at the admission table, and as soon as I won, all of them, they were just like, what? Because she had the belt for 15 months. From what she told me, I don't think she defended it once. So it was just like, she comes in, she loses to me, and then there's this guy, his name's Nick Russo, and he's with one of the guys that works up at NCW with me, and they're in like a little thing together, and he comes out after my match and like raises my hands to like show that I joined him, and they fucking hated it. They started booing me. There was this lady with her kids, and she's like, "Boo, you suck, you're a brat." And I was like, "Yeah, but who's your champ now? Me." And I just walk out, and they were so mad at me, and it went straight into intermission, and they were so mad. It was the funniest thing ever.
And for those that don't know, because I'm in South Carolina, so I know who Clara is. For those that don't know, Clara Carter's a pretty big deal in the Carolinas. Like, she's no small feat. So
she was so nice.
Yeah, that is nuclear heat right there. On the flip side of that coin, let's try that in English. Who's your dream opponent? If you can pick anybody, and I want to ask you, anybody on the indies, like somebody realistic. Who's your realistic dream opponent? And then who's just your dream opponent? WWE, AEW, doesn't matter.
I'd say dream opponent right now would definitely be Kenzie Page in NWA. I love her. And then overall dream opponent, I feel like I would say Liv, but the fact that like her finisher is also my finisher, I don't really think that would work well. So, I'd love to face like Julia or Stephanie.
Okay.
But I feel like that would be a fun match because they move so differently than any other women's wrestler that I've seen.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. That's a unique answer too. I haven't heard that neither of those names a lot, so I definitely like that. With this being the Fans View podcast, a couple of my favorite questions to ask. Number one being, what are you a fan of when you're not doing anything? I guess when you're not training, when you're not wrestling, when you're not working out, when you're not at school. Like, what are you just a fan of?
I feel like when I'm not doing anything at all, I try to be as lazy as possible to let
God
my body
bless.
kind of like recover for a minute. So I've been watching a lot of Netflix recently. Like anytime they have this is specifically for Netflix, like it's not going to be anywhere else. I'm like, watch it. I don't even care what it is. So I've watched so much Netflix that I'm just like, what is going on? I think I've watched almost every Adam Sandler movie that has ever been created. I'm working on doing that right now. There was like one or two that I discovered, and I was like, wait, I haven't seen that yet. Where did you come from? So yeah.
I'm gonna put you on the spot now. Now I need your favorite Adam Sandler movie.
Let's see.
There's a lot of pressure. This is the biggest question I might ask you in this
And
whole
it
interview.
sucks because like I'm horrible with names.
If you can't remember the name and you describe the plot, I can cover it for you.
Okay. My favorite one, it was the way that I describe it is like Adam Sandler Clue, because they're on this ship and he's saying that he's a detective, but like it was either he used to be or he just wasn't entirely, and there was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to look this up. I'm gonna have to look it up.
I was about to say, if you keep describing it, I'm looking it up as we speak. Was it Murder Mystery with Jennifer Aniston?
Yes, I love that movie. I love that movie.
Okay,
Cause
right,
so
that's
funny,
fair.
Because I'm like, okay, if anyone hasn't seen this movie, I'm sorry, I'm about to spoil it. But like at the end, when they find out it's the girl, they're like, oh my god, there's no way that it could have been her. And I'm like, bro, I could have told you that at the beginning. The most unlikely one to do it is the one who did it. Always.
See, can't work a worker.
Can't work.
Can't work a worker. So what's the last thing you watched on Netflix? I guess that'll round out this question.
It was the most random thing. So it's called a movie. I just watched it today. It's like an hour and 40 minutes, and it's called How to Be Single. It is the funniest.
Oh yes, good movie.
It was so funny to watch, like, because I'm just like,
that's the one with Rebel Wilson and Dakota Johnson in it, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Because oh my gosh, it just keeps going, and I was like, and the movie says that it's rated R, but I'm like, I've seen way worse that's rated PG-13. So I don't understand how this movie's rated R, but whatever.
Yeah. That's a pretty good movie, pretty decent movie. Maybe a chick flick, so whatever. God bless a good rom-com. You didn't see me knowing that movie, did you? To round this out, I'm going to ask the question. It's my favorite question to ask everybody. And you can be as deep, you can be a philosopher with this one, or you can be shallow. But the question is, what does success mean to you at this stage, not only of your career, but in your life? What does success mean to you?
I feel, obviously, everybody has their own answer to this. That's why you ask it. But one thing that I've learned for myself is, like, obviously talking about my schedule, it can become very overwhelming, right? So I take success at a day at a time. So whenever I like lay my head down for the night and I go to bed, I'm like, okay, I was successful today. And what I mean by that is I got up, I did what I had to do, and I know that I did it like with 100% of my energy. I gave everything into what I had. Even if that's a lazy day and I'm like, yeah, I just watched TV. I just watched TV like that. I went all in, just finished a whole season. Okay, you were successful today with your lazy day. Yeah. Like whenever I was adjusting to the wrestling schedule and the school schedule, because originally I was going to take a gap year and just focus on wrestling so I wasn't so overwhelmed. And then I decided, I was just like, I'm just going to get school out of the way because I want to be done with it. Because I was never a school person.
Right.
So, yeah, every day is different. Whenever I have school, as long as I finish school, I get all my homework done. It's a successful day. Do a match. As long as I don't get hurt, everything goes well. It was a successful day. So, yeah, when I think of success, I think of one day at a time. Until I will meet my overall goal. But if I think about what I'm trying to reach through all of this, so like get to WWE and get in front of those people, that just that idea alone can get pretty overwhelming, putting that amount of pressure on yourself and that stress. So just taking it a day at a time, working on what you have to do that day. And not every day is going to be a successful day, and that's fine, but then you just work harder tomorrow.
I really like that answer. No one has ever broken it down to, just one foot in front of the other every day. Little success here, and they're going to stack up by the end of the day, end of the week, end of the month. So I really enjoy that approach. Ava, this has been wonderful to have you on. Obviously we've been trying to get this going for a couple months and your schedule has just not allowed it. So I am so glad we could have you on. Hopefully this is the first of many appearances on here. I know we got something cooking that we can't really talk about just yet, but just know, folks, there's some stuff in the works. So hopefully Ava will be a regular.
I just messaged Austin actually, and I dropped the announcement today because he wanted me to drop a promo about it. So it's on my Instagram right now.
Okay. Well, then there we go, folks. Go check out her Instagram, and you'll see what we have in the works going on here. And that's a perfect. You are the segue queen. Let me just tell you, you're going to go far in this business. My next question for you was, where can people get a hold of you? Where can people, talk a little shit to you? Where can promoters get a hold of you? All that fun stuff.
Official Ava Brooks on everything. And I always say, if you can't find me on something for some reason, I tried it the other day. If you go to Google and you put Ava Brooks Professional Wrestling, my Facebook and Instagram, and I think my Twitter also, will immediately, or X, will immediately show up. And then I'm pretty sure in all of my bios I have my link tree, and you can go to that. And then in my Instagram is the email. But if you're a new promoter that I've never worked with before, I'm probably going to send you to, his name's Nick Russo, because he's handling all of my out of state, unless I've dealt with you before, obviously, my out of state bookings because of the belt. So yeah.
Okay. But you are willing to travel so promoters know you're down to travel. You're not exclusive to the Northeast. Well, like I said, Ava, I have had so much fun talking to you today. I really hope this is the first of many, many appearances that you have on the show, and your first of many championships, and your first of many, many other things. Because like I said, you are a baby in this business, but you're out there making your name for yourself. And we at the Fans View, and I can speak for Austin at Wildside Wrestling Podcast, we are all behind you. And with that, like I said, I want to thank you guys. Make sure you go hit her on Instagram, X, book her, give Ava some love, get her some bookings, put a little money in her pocket, and just go out and support her. With that said, guys, until the next time, most importantly of all, make sure to go home, call your mom. We'll see you on the next episode.
I'm Ava Brooks, your youngest AIWF Women's World Champion, and this is Fans View Podcast.
If you haven't liked or subscribed, you're going to be joking me.